Yeah, I've never heard this side of history ever before. Imagine that. Your slave owner is a white woman and she gets to do and treat you however she wants. You know she was using and abusing you for sure, for sure. I'm talking about in every way imaginable. Some of y'all would like that, and I'm not even judging. We gonna talk about this video though. Shout out to the gang. Let's go. What's good? Dark Knight gang. I'm Neptune. Alright, bro, look. Today, I got a good video. I was about to watch this video, but I was like, you know what? Let's just watch it together. This will be interesting. Today, we're going to watch a video titled The Untold Horrors of Black Male Slaves by White Women. Yeah, man. This is about to be crazy. I want to see how some of my ancestors were treated by white women. Like, what did they have to endure? That mess is crazy, man. Let me ask you a question. I want you to be completely honest. And I'm going to be completely honest with you, too. If you were back in those times, let's say you were born into slavery. Your mom's a slave, your dad's a slave, all your brothers, sisters, whatever. You're born as a slave. Do you think you would have went along with it and been a good slave? Or, like, what type of slave would you have been? Would you have been plotting and planning to overthrow your slave masters? Would you have tried to escape? Or would you have been a good little slave and all you did was work in the fields and get whooped and beat when you stepped out of line? What type of slave would you have been? Let me know in the comments. Keep it a stack. Some of y'all gonna lie and be like, I would have been a slave that fought back. Nah, you ain't got no heart, cuz. You ain't got no heart. You would have been a good little slave. Yes, massa. Please, no more whoopings. Me? I already know the type of slave I would have been. See, me, I'm not stupid, right? Of course, I like to live life, but I'm not stupid. I would have been the type of slave that plotted and planned, tried to gain other slaves a part of my rebellion, and we would have overthrew our slave masters. We would have killed them, took over the plantation, acted like everything is good. Maybe we would have went to war. I'll go to war for it too. But think about that. If we're still producing and making money, they might would have just said, you know what, leave them alone over there. At least they're still making money. Who knows? But ain't no way I would have been a slave. Hell no. What? I'm born a slave. I'm overthrowing. I wouldn't try to run away. No, I'm overthrowing them. Like, what? You could just get 20 of y'all. And you could easily take over the whole plantation. That's what I would do. But anyway, that's what I would do. Let me know what type of slave you would have been down in the comments. Yeah, we're going to see what happens with the white women. Ain't no way I would have had a white woman do anything crazy to me either. I mean, if she used me for my body, I probably would have liked it too. Anyway, let's watch this video. Shout out to the gang. Everybody have a great day. As you can tell, I'm feeling good. I'm feeling great. Let's watch this video. Yeah, let's go.
White women were not passive bystanders to the slave economy. They were co-conspirators. They bought, sold, and owned slaves. In fact, about 40% of the slave owners were white women. The more slaves a woman had, the more power she held. Parents gave their daughters more enslaved people than land. So, to a white Southern woman, owning slaves became tied to her very identity. This is the true story of how white women treated their black slaves.
Yeah, this is about to be interesting.
Slavery in the U.S. lasted for more than 400 years, and in that time, the system shaped generations and generations of people. A system that created this psychological distortion. White people dominated the country. They created a violent and oppressive system to terrorize the black community. They used lynchings, beatings, and savage treatment to torment the masses. Even when there wasn't violence, there was segregation. Communities, housing, and the criminal justice system used discriminatory policies. Racism pervaded all aspects of American society. White families gained huge amounts of material benefits and privileges from this racial hierarchy. Before the Civil War, in the South, American white women couldn't vote. When they got married, the husband became the head of the household, and the woman was the heart of the home. Women were considered the property of their husbands. Their mobility and freedom were severely limited. For example, if a woman wanted to travel, she would need a male chaperone. The abuse was considered a normal way to control a woman. They were expected to remain cheerful, pleasant, obedient, and faithful, while their husbands had
Crazy.
affairs and female slaves. These women knew that the mixed-race slave children on their properties were their husbands' offspring. That's why many white women wanted freedom of their own, power to turn the narrative. That's where slavery came into play. Most people know.
You know what is crazy though? A lot of people sort of forget about how women were treated, you know, especially us men. A lot of times we forget that, yeah, women didn't really used to have rights either, bro. And they were treated as property as well. So a lot of people need to remember that. It's been a whole struggle for women as well. Like, really think about that. This is not about women. This is not a video about women, so I don't really want to dive too deep into that. But you should really think about that one day. Like, look into that. Look how women, you know, before women's rights, look at how they used to be treated. Just look back into that. It's very interesting.
Most people know that George Washington had slaves. They took care of his Mount Vernon home. But very few people know that Martha, his wife, was the one who drastically increased the slave population there. When the couple got married in 1759, George owned about 18 slaves, but Martha owned 84. The high number of people Martha owned might be unusual, but the fact that she had black slaves is not. She and many other white women were violent and active participants in the slave trade. Having many enslaved people increased a woman's chances of finding a good husband. After marriage, white women went to court to keep legal ownership over their slaves, and in many cases, they won. That's because, for women, slavery was their freedom. In the past, historians believed that white women didn't have a significant role in slavery. They based their conclusions on the writings of a small group of white women from the South. However, Jones Rogers, an associate professor of history at the University of California, Berkeley, used a different source: interviews with black people, real evidence that gave her a better look at what happened during the time of slavery.
Enslaved all our lives, and mother was a slave, sister was a slave. Father was a slave.
They know nothing about reading right there. All that I know is they teach you to mind your marks and you miss it.
These interviews were part of the Federal Writers Project, a branch of the Works Progress Administration. The truth is, white girls were taught how to become slave owners at a very young age. When they were just 9 months old, they grew up in a world that showed them how to control, own, and master enslaved people.
Some people didn't have no beds when they were slaves. They would sleep on the floor. Had a chin, had it down. Just like a lot of wild people, we didn't know nothing. Didn't like look at no book.
Many of their family
That's
members,
crazy,
even their
man.
female cousins,
That's so
friends,
wild.
mothers, and grandmothers were teaching these young women how the world works. They have this property, and once they get married, this property will belong to their husband unless they are willing to do something about it. And if that husband is a loser, so are you. So, young girls were trained to make sure that whatever happened in their lives, they would need to ensure their success. When a white woman was old enough to have slaves, she could use her social standing to uphold and sustain that power. She could dictate the lives of those she owned and could verbally or brutally exploit her servants. What many people today may not realize is that Southern households did their best to reproduce slave society. They wanted more servants at a lower cost. White women born during these periods, whether boys or girls, would watch their parents exert dominion over their black servants. They were taught to mimic their behaviors. They were ready, smart, calculated. They knew exactly what they were doing. The book, They Were Her Property, gives us clear examples of how life back then actually looked like. The first chapter starts with Lizzie Anna Burwell, a 3-year-old who demands her father cut the ears of a black servant and get her a new maid from Clarksville. Her father would then give the girl more slaves as gifts, so that they would become her property. The book reveals how women in the antebellum South could actively possess property and, in turn, lay claim to owning black servants. Legally married women were not recognized as property owners due to the coverture doctrine. This meant
I mean, yeah, I believe it. It makes total sense. Let's say a man, he only has a daughter, right? So he can't pass on everything he owns to his son because he didn't have a son. So he has a daughter. So, yeah, everything that the man owns is going to be passed down to his daughter. So, yeah, the daughter has all the slaves and everything, too. Damn. And the narrator said that one slave girl said, "Daddy, cut the ears off that slave." I bet you that happened a lot. Like, for my birthday, I want you to give me his big toe. And then they cut off his big toe or something. Like, that's crazy, man. The world is such a crazy place. Like, damn.
In Stephanie McCurry's works, Women's War and Confederate Reckoning, the coverture mirrored the private authority slaveholders held over black servants. Women had limited legal and political standing, and any attempts they made in this regard were met with significant resistance. Jones Rogers acknowledged that coverture often restricted married white women, but she also explained that Southern families frequently bypassed or overlooked these restrictions. Families could transfer property to daughters or other female relatives under the condition that it would remain separate from marital assets. Southern women could, and did, create what we now refer to as prenuptial agreements, or documents like deeds of trust, deeds of gift, and wills, which granted the wife control over all the property she already possessed or would acquire during her marriage. In Louisiana, women could ask the court to establish separate marital estates if their husbands exhibited imprudent financial management. For example, if their husband failed to budget their expenses, accumulated debt, spent too much, etc. In other words, there were two distinct systems that coexisted, a genuine patriarchy alongside an actual framework of legal and financial influence held by white women. There was a common misconception that white women were sheltered and delicate. They kept the household clean of all.
Yeah, I've never heard this side of history ever before. This is interesting. Interesting.
All the impurities of the outside world. But that is absolutely not true. Slave traders, travelers, merchants, city officials, and former black slaves all attested to the presence of white women in 19th century slave markets. When slavery was at its peak, women also sold and bought black servants from the comfort of their own homes, many times within local social networks. Because of their widespread influence, white women created a completely different market of enslaved wet nurses. Now, you might be wondering why these white women felt the need to tear black women from their families to nurse their children. One actual report said that white women who were constantly having babies felt like a slave in their own homes. Black women could ease that burden, so it was easier to buy a wet nurse who would take care of such responsibilities. Depending on her financial status, the white woman could hire, borrow, or purchase an enslaved wet nurse. This gave white women the power to pursue social events while someone else took care of their newborn. Some, but not all, white women were incredibly brutal to their enslaved. They were so violent that their husbands had to restrain them. For example, a wealthy white woman often invested in enslaved men and women so that they would be forced to reproduce and give her more slaves.
Of course.
Historical records
Breeders.
kept track of a woman called Henrietta
That's
Butler,
crazy,
who was
though.
forced to have
Think
sex
about
with
that.
enslaved black men to have a child. She was then
Hey, just really quick. Just go with my imagination for a second. Imagine you were a slave, but you were selected to be a breeder. So basically, imagine you were a slave. Let's say you're a man or a woman. I don't know. Whatever sex you are now. So imagine you were a slave, right? And they selected you to be a breeder. They're like, you know what? All we want you to do is just give us more slave children because you have great genetics. Would you want that slave life? Let's say you could only choose. Let's say you had three choices, right? In the slave life. Let's say you're about to start the game of life and you had to be a slave and you have three options. You get to be a house, right? So you in the house. You a house slave. You get to be a field. You in the field. You in the trenches, cuz. Or you get to be a breeder. Which one you choosing? Let me know in the comments. Me, put me in the trenches. Because that's why I'm going to get everybody together and we're going to revolt for sure. If you a house nigga, you can't revolt. Nobody going to listen to you. You a house. You'll have an easier life, but you can't revolt. You a house nigga. It might be easier for you though, actually, because you have direct access. You feel me? But anyway, let me know which type of slave you would be. Put me in the trenches, boy. Let's keep going.
who was forced to have sex with enslaved black men to have a child. She was then forced to nurse her mistress's child, but many other women suffered a similar fate. Masters often raped their enslaved servants to make sure they had an ample supply of wet nurses. White women from affluent households also ran brothels, especially the women who had many male and female slaves. By 1860, nearly half of all African slaves in the Americas were in the United States. That was about 4 to 6 million people. Based on reports from the 1860 census, 393,973 white individuals owned 3,950,528 black individuals. Only about 1.5% of the white population in the US owned slaves. It's been over 150 years since slavery legally ended in 18.
That's something you don't really hear. I didn't know that. It was that little of a percent of white people that own slaves, huh? That's interesting. Let black people tell it. Every white person ever born owns slaves. I swear to God. Them niggas, if you let black people tell it, they'll let you know. They feel like every white person owned a slave and they hate them all. You feel me? But that's interesting to learn right there. That's interesting. Next time I come across one of those super pro-black niggas, I'm gonna let them know, like, bro, you know only 1% of white people, like, and you walk around hating all of them. You crazy. Anyway, let's keep going.
1865. But the true trauma wasn't just the experience of slavery, but also the aftermath, when hopes for equality and acceptance were crushed in the 1880 to 1890s due to a shift in beliefs about blacks and whites. When the Civil War came, and it was time to free the enslaved, many white women retaliated. Female slave owners resisted the change by letting the Union authorities know they were loyal. There were many cases where female slave owners sought compensation when the American government abolished slavery in the District of Columbia. Others wanted to keep their property by any means necessary. They went as far as to move their enslaved people away from the areas affected by the war, in a practice known as refugeeing. When the Civil War ended, many white women negotiated labor conditions with freed black people. They tried to maintain control over the young African Americans by taking their children as apprentices. Apprenticeship was another form of labor. Although it was better than complete slavery, it was still not freedom. Ex-slaves were expected to work under the same master or mistress, often for meager wages and a specific time set. Many apprentices worked for the same person that used to be their mistress, and it was not that better than the life they had before. W.E.B. Du Bois, an American sociologist, wrote something about it. He said a slave went free, stood for a brief moment in the sun, then moved back again towards slavery. This brief moment in the sun was when black communities, along with support from the Freedmen's Bureau, started establishing schools, social assistance, and some legal protections. However, this progress was largely undermined by the white Southern elite. That includes white women. They swiftly passed laws known as the Black Codes. Their goal was simple: reintroduce obligations, burdens, and restrictions that would mimic slavery. The Black Codes were designed to take away the voting rights of black people. They were meant to stop them from becoming juries or state militias. Instead, the white people would create this complex system where freed black people could still be controlled. White men and women put in place contract and vagrancy laws. They led to a popular peonage labor system. Peonage is a type of involuntary servitude based on claimed debt. By 1915, at least 6 former slaveholding states had laws that made it possible to force black people to work against their will. For example, if a black person was found guilty of vagrancy, they were forced to work in the convict lease system. This system brought in substantial profits for the wealthy white women and men who both sold and bought the labor of those who were convicted. Experts found a memoir of a white woman called Rebecca Felton.
I believe this still happens to this day, right? Don't people in prison work for like 5 cents a day or something crazy like that? So yeah, I think people that are in prison, they still do this to this day. They work and get like a nickel or something crazy. I don't know. It might be like $1 a day. I don't know what it is, bro.
Take a look at this colorized interview from 1929. Felton was a former slave owner who grew up during the Civil War.
I went to Washington 50 years and a little more ago. I saw all the people around there and been with the president. I was one of the board of lady managers for the Chicago Exposition, and I served my full time in Chicago.
In her memoir, she talked about the corruption in Georgia's legal system. She mentioned that there were cases where judges were elected by a dominant faction. During this time, a black person could be sentenced to hard labor for 10 years for stealing just 3 eggs or a bowl of milk. She also noted that a 15-year-old black girl in Atlanta got a 5-year penitentiary for taking 50 cents from another black child. The dominant faction made a huge amount of money, about $500,000 a year, from the convict leasing system, and judges who sent strong black people to prison had much better chances of being elected. But control wouldn't have been possible without the threat of violence. That's where groups like the Ku Klux Klan came into play. They intimidated, brutalized.
Hey. Shout out to my ancestors, though. We stood up, nigga. Fucking warriors, nigga. Like, if you really think about that, we were slaves, cuz. My ancestors, we were slaves. But we stood up and said, nah, nigga, we ain't putting up with this bullshit, cuz. And then they made the Ku Klux Klan and said, okay, we gonna fight back and kill y'all niggers. We said, what's good? And we won. That's kind of fire if you think about that. Yeah, we were taken as slaves. Yeah, you stole my ancestors. Or some of them were traded. Okay. Yeah. Big ups to you. You had us enslaved for 400 years. You got... Okay, but we broke out of that shit. You feel me? And now look at us. We taking over.
And murdered black people across the nation. The
Yeah.
Women's KKK. That's where groups like the Ku Klux Klan came into play. They intimidated, brutalized, and murdered black people across the nation. The Women's KKK was a separate but affiliated racist group of white Protestant women. They got more members through empowerment feminism. The first version of the KKK emerged in Pulaski, Tennessee, after the Civil War. It was established by men who were upset about the newly liberated black population. They were angry about their political rights and sought purpose, thrill, and a socially accepted platform where they could be violent. These early KKK members wanted something new, but they wanted to keep it under a veil of secrecy, and they did just that. The KKK created a strict organization with many ceremonies that would go perfectly with their hateful, anti-Reconstruction goals. During the starting days of the Klan, women didn't actively participate, but they did sew their husbands' and family members' clothes for the ceremonies. Women also had a symbolic role to play. One of the goals of these extremists, as they saw it, was to shield pure and innocent women from the frightening black people who were now a threat. Especially in its early years, the male Klan held two conflicting views of femininity and womanhood. One was a fantasy, and the other was a concession to real people. In their minds, white Protestant women were pure, virtuous beings whose main purpose was to support and serve men. In return, men would safeguard these vulnerable ladies from those sexually aggressive black men. In the second phase of the Klan came the Women's KKK. This was a related but separate group specifically for white Protestant women. The early days of the WKKK were marked by conflicts within the Klan itself. One leader of the male Klan started a group called the Camellias. It focused on women and advocated for white supremacy so that he could increase his own influence. Another leader joined forces with a secretive women's society called the Queens of the Golden Mask. Eventually, the Golden Mask group prevailed and became the WKKK. It was the first authorized and literal.
I didn't even know that women made their own KKK, but I can definitely, it makes total sense, obviously. But it's not like every white person. It was just, the ones that wanted slavery to continue. But yeah, of course there would be women that's doing it too. So yeah, we had to overcome them too. Shout out to my kings and my queens, bro. Black people, we fire, man. We fire for that.
Rock, Arkansas, in 1923. At its height, the WKKK had branches in every state, especially in Arkansas, Ohio, Pennsylvania, and Indiana. Much like the male KKK, the WKKK had a structured system. Interestingly, the system had similar aspects to the Roman Catholic hierarchy. There were positions like the Imperial Commander, Claylers, Clocards, Cligraps, Claybees, along with the Klexter Chlorogos. People in these positions were responsible for enforcing Klan rules. They recruited members, collected dues, organized events, and so on. But all of these roles and activities were influenced by racism, nationalism, fear of outsiders, and a determination to protect the family. In contrast to their male counterparts, the WKKK didn't often participate in lynching or other...
I wonder how it would have been to, be a white person during this time. You know what I mean? Like, what if you were a white person and your family was in the KKK and you were born into a KKK type family, you know? And everybody you're around, they just hate black people, and you know they indoctrinate you with that as well when you're a kid. Like, yeah, black people, we hate them, woo, woo, woo. And like everyone you're around is in a KKK. That would suck. You will grow up hating black people too. More than likely, you will be a part of the KKK. Then you would have to break that mental programming they put on you since you were a kid. You know what I mean? So, of course, I'm sure there were some white people who broke out of that, like, nah, not all black people were bad. Like, y'all tripping. But for the most part, I feel like the white people that were just born into that, you know, they were programmed into that as well. So they were programmed with that belief. So that's how it survived for so long. But yeah, just think about that. You born in a white family, you part of the KKK. Damn, bro. A lot of y'all would have stayed hating black people, man. Y'all would have been part of the KKK too. Lynching niggers. Let's go lynch a nigger. Like, you would have been right there, nigga, with the cross on fire, lifted it up. Yeah! Me, I'm a natural born rebel. So that means whatever I feel like is wrong, I go against. So if I would have been born into the KKK, I would have been like, nah, y'all crazy. I don't mess with that. Like, y'all got issues. Because I'm a natural born rebel. But yeah, some of y'all just followers. So it's the same thing. If you were born into the KKK, you a follower. So you would have been programmed with those beliefs, and that's who you would have been. You would have been part of the KKK. Let your nigga. Like, that would have been you, bro. Anyway.
The fact is, the women KKK was very powerful. They were excellent manipulators. They used their social standing to further improve their agendas. Many of these members had organized social clubs before, so it was super easy for them to spread the word and destroy the reputations of political candidates or anyone else they deemed unworthy. These women tried to remove Catholic public school teachers, organized boycotts of businesses, and supported candidates who were aligned with the Klan. They increased their influence by providing food baskets to needy families. They also arranged events like weddings, funerals, speeches, parades, christenings, carnivals, and lectures. By organizing both ceremonial and social activities, these women integrated the Klan in.
I wonder if, just hear me out for a second, bro. Relax. This world, and not even the world, let's just talk about the United States. The U.S. is so messed up, bro. It's so messed up. And we have the resources to change everything. But the people on the top, they don't want the change to occur. So they're doing what they can to make sure that it stays the same. And they keep the public just dumbed down. Hopefully a lot of people wake up one day and then we all could come together and then bring about change. Because the way that the world is being ran is completely just the dumbest thing in the world. But I said, even if we just focus, we could zoom in a little bit. Fine. We don't have to think too big right now. We could just zoom in on the U.S. The way things are going, it's just, certain things just don't make sense. A lot of people aren't thinking, you know? I'm not talking about, look, you can think what you want to think. Some people are going to say, what are you talking about? The LGBTQ? No, I believe you should love everyone and accept everyone. I'm going to keep it a stack. I'm not talking about that, though. I'm talking about just how we're living. I'm talking about how processed foods are literally killing you, but that's what's being marketed to you every single day. And that's what's readily and easily available for us instead of whole foods. You know what I mean? I'm talking about how we all have to work for giant corporations to where we're barely surviving, working hard day in, day out, barely surviving, where like the CEOs and everybody is chilling. How is that fair? I'm talking about how throughout the U.S., there's growing more and more poverty. Everybody's kind of struggling, but the rich of the rich are just chilling. Why are we living in a world like this still in 2023? We have enough resources to where we all could be living good. But the powers that be don't care. They're like, no. Y'all niggas stay down there. We'll give y'all little crumbs so y'all can just have the bare minimum while we live extravagant lives. Why is that fair? And a lot of people just don't wake up to this, ever. A lot of people I'm just going to go to work and make some money and just live an okay life. What are you talking about? Wake up. You can live an exceptional life. We have the resources nowadays to live an exceptional life. But people just can't wake up to that fact. Let me just work these 40 hours a week because I barely got to survive. It doesn't even have to be like that. What are you talking about? Why are we required to work 40 hours a week? Because who told you this? Who told you you had to work 40 hours a week? Like, you see what I'm saying? If you love to work and you want to work 40 hours a week, go ahead. But you should be compensated so much to where it's like, I'm living a great life. Why is it fair that you have to work 8 hours in a day, a third of your day? What? That don't even make sense. I feel like the work week should be 20 hours per week, and that should be enough to live a decent life. And if you wanted to work 40, you can, and now you're making a lot. But mostly everybody is just cool with how things are going. They don't wake up to none of this. They don't care. Let me just keep working. It's like, no, bro, you weren't born to just work, eat, sleep, and die. You're meant to live life and experience life. You should be able to travel around this world anywhere you want to go. We're all equal. This earth belongs to you as much as it belongs to me, as much as it belongs to the next person. You should be able to travel, enjoy the good food. You should be able to live a decent life. You should be able to live a great life. You should be able to do whatever you want to do. As long, of course, if you're obeying laws, we make laws so people just won't go crazy and kill people. Nah, we got to have laws. So as long as you're obeying the laws, you should be able to live a great life. But no, people aren't waking up to this. People we're born and we go to school and then we learn we got to work 40 hours a week to barely survive. And this is just how life is. Damn. And so many people are asleep to this. They're so asleep to this. Life don't have to be like this. We can literally change the way the world is. We have the power. Bro, this is the thing that a lot of people don't understand. I know I'm going off on a tangent, but I guess I just need to get this off my chest because a lot of people, even when I try to bring this up, they don't comprehend at all. But this is why I love YouTube, because sometimes I can share my thoughts and there's people out there that understand. So anyway, this doesn't need to be like how it is. Society, the homelessness, money isn't even real. It's a concept that we made up to exchange goods. We could come up with a completely different concept in how to exchange goods. But no, everybody, money isn't even real. Money's a concept that we made up in order to exchange goods. Think about that. We could change everything, but people just don't wake up to it. And there's people starving, there's people barely surviving. And it's just like, why are people living like this? Why are people homeless? Why? You don't think that everyone who is born deserves to live under a roof? Yes, they do. They're born on this earth. Why do they not have shelter? Because they can't pay for one. What the hell? Why do they have to pay for shelter? They were born here just like me and you. Why do they have to pay for the basic? I believe everyone deserves the basic necessities. They were born on this earth. They should be able to have the basic necessities. Shelter, food, clothing, transportation. Off top. Everyone. Now, if you want extra things in your life, you contribute to society by working and you will get extra. But I believe everyone in society should have basic needs met. You were born. Why would you not have your basic needs met? Right when you're born, boom. You were born in this society. You're a civilian in this society. You automatically are going to have health care. You automatically are going to have a house, like basic necessities. You want more? You want nice things? Luxurious things? Yes. Contribute. Work. Like, you see what I'm saying? That's how I believe. But people can't even wake up to that. Huh? No. Because then the monetary system would collapse. That's why we need to redo everything. That's why we need to let go of money and come up with a completely different concept. Like, we just need to redo the whole system. if you really open your eyes, like, the whole world is kind of messed up. Even the healthcare system in the U.S. is jacked up, bro. How are doctors sponsored by pharmaceutical companies to just tell you to take drugs instead of telling you what to actually do to become healthy? That is insane. That is insane. This whole system is insane. But a lot of people just aren't awake to it. How in the healthcare system is only about profits? It's not even about health. What the hell? Like, can we make it about health? And then, okay, you want to make money somehow? Make money somehow, but can we please at least focus on health? Like, y'all not paying attention to nothing. People just don't care. Politics is not about what's best for the people. It's about how much money they can make as well. But people just not opening their eyes. Like, we got to redo everything, bro. We do. Because the way life is, it just doesn't make sense. It's so stupid. It's so stupid. I mean, I participate because niggas can't wake up. So it's like, damn, I got to participate or I just fall off the grid. But then I don't want to live that way. I don't want to be off the grid. I want to live in society. So I got to participate. But it's like, damn, I just wish other people would wake up and we could just change how things are, make it better. But nah, niggas love to work for massa. Niggas want to work 40 hours a week. Niggas just, you know what I'm saying? Niggas ain't waking up. So I'm just like, whatever, cuz, whatever. But anyway, this was a good video. I went on a tangent. We don't even have to watch the video any longer. Hopefully you watch throughout this whole video and me going on this tangent. I mean, I didn't know it was going to turn to this. But hey, this is why I love making YouTube videos. Because I'm always in the flow state. And I'm just myself. And I get to talk and just, you know what I mean? So, for me, this was fire. I hope you enjoyed it. But yeah, man, really think about everything I said. Like, really think about it. Life doesn't have to go the way it's been going. We can change it. We're the ones that's in control. We made up all the laws, all the systems. We can easily change it. We're in control of it. But hey, you know what I'm saying? Stay asleep, cuz. Shout out to the gang. Everybody have a good day. Have a great day. See y'all next time. Yeah. I know you want me. You said you're lonely. You can't get none of me. Smoking the gas now. Feel like a star, yeah. She wanna get rich, proud of Dior, yeah. My heart is so froze now.